For Father's Day, my family kept saying, "Don't make any plans." My wife giggled when I tried to guess. "It's a surprise," she promised. The morning of, I woke up alone. No breakfast. No card. Just silence. By noon, I saw their Instagram story, a family brunch without me. Caption: Best dad ever when he's not around, lol. I didn't react. I didn't text. I just waited. 2 days later, my phone lit up with 63 missed calls and a message from my daughter: "Please come home." We didn't know. The whole thing started about a week before Father's Day, with whispers and giggles that would abruptly stop the moment I walked into a room. It was a familiar, comforting dance, one we'd done for years around birthdays and holidays. "Don't make any plans for Sunday," my wife, Sarah, had said, her eyes sparkling with a mischief I had adored for 20 years. She poked me in the ribs as I was loading the dishwasher, a playful gesture that was meant to be both a warning and a promise. "Seriously, Mark. Keep the whole day free. It's a surprise." I tried to guess, of course. It was part of the game. "Are we finally taking that trip to the lake house?" I'd asked, and she just laughed, a light, airy sound that used to fill our entire home with warmth. My daughter, Maya, a 17-year-old who was usually far too cool to engage in family shenanigans, would share knowing glances with her mom, a small, secretive smile playing on her lips. Even 12-year-old Leo, my son, was in on it, though he was far less subtle. "You're going to love it, Dad," he'd blurt out at the dinner table before Sarah would shoot him a look that was a mixture of loving exasperation and stern warning. I loved it. I loved the anticipation, the feeling of being the center of their world, even for a day. I worked hard for them, for this life, and these were the moments that made every long hour, every bit of stress, feel insignificant. I imagined a new grill for the backyard, the gleaming stainless steel replacing the rusty old one I'd been meaning to throw out. Or maybe they'd pooled their money for that sleek, minimalist watch I'd pointed out in a magazine months ago, the one I'd never actually buy for myself. The possibilities felt warm and bright, a beacon at the end of a particularly grueling few months at the office. The pressure had been immense, the hours stretching late into the night, and I'd been running on fumes. I was tired, a deep, bone-weary exhaustion that seemed to have settled into my very soul. I'd been more distant, I knew, more quiet at dinner, my mind often drifting back to spreadsheets and deadlines. But this, I thought, this would be the perfect reset. A day dedicated to family, to joy, to remembering what all the hard work was for. The morning of Father's Day arrived not with a bang, but with an unnerving, profound silence. I woke up gradually, my mind slowly registering the absence of sound. There was no sizzle of bacon from the kitchen, no hushed, excited footsteps in the hallway. There was just the low hum of the air conditioner and the gentle light of a Sunday morning filtering through the blinds. I rolled over, reaching for Sarah, but the space beside me was empty and cold. A flicker of confusion, not yet alarm, went through me. Maybe they were all downstairs, setting up the grand surprise, holding their breath and waiting for me to emerge. I smiled to myself, picturing it. I swung my legs out of bed, the floorboards cool beneath my feet, and pulled on a t-shirt. I walked out of our bedroom and into the hall. "Hello?" I called out, my voice sounding strangely loud in the stillness. "Nothing." I walked downstairs, each step echoing. The kitchen was immaculate, the counters wiped clean, no coffee brewing. The living room was empty, the television dark. On the kitchen counter, where a handmade card or a clumsily wrapped gift would normally be, there was only a single, stray crumb. The silence was no longer peaceful, it was heavy, suffocating. I checked my phone. No messages. No missed calls. It was 8:30 a.m. A knot of unease began to tighten in my stomach. I told myself not to be ridiculous. This was part of the surprise. It had to be. A scavenger hunt, perhaps? They'd left a clue somewhere, and my job was to find it. I spent the next hour searching the house, my initial amusement slowly curdling into a sour mix of anxiety and disappointment. I looked in all the old hiding spots, behind the bookshelf, in the pantry, under the couch cushions. I found nothing but dust bunnies and a lost Lego. By 10 a.m., the hope had mostly evaporated, leaving a hollow ache in its place. I made myself a cup of coffee, the bitter taste matching my mood. I sat at the empty kitchen table, staring out at the backyard, at the rusty grill I now knew wasn't being replaced. The minutes ticked by, each one a small, sharp jab of rejection. Noon arrived, and with it, the final, crushing blow. I was scrolling aimlessly through my phone, a desperate, modern habit for staving off loneliness, when a new Instagram story popped up at the top of my feed. It was from Sarah. My thumb hovered over the colorful circle for a moment before I pressed it. The image that filled my screen was bright, cheerful, and utterly devastating. It was a picture of my family. Sarah, Maya, and Leo were seated at a beautiful, sun-drenched table at the Gilded Spoon, one of the trendiest, most expensive brunch spots in the city. They were all smiling, their faces glowing with happiness. Maya had her arm around her mom, and Leo was making a goofy face, a dollop of whipped cream on his nose. In front of them was a feast of pancakes, eggs Benedict, and vibrant fruit platters. It was a perfect picture of a perfect family enjoying a perfect day. And then I read the caption, written in a cheerful, looping font across the image. Happy Father's Day to the best dad ever. When he's not around, LOL. The air rushed out of my lungs. I read it again, and then a third time, the words blurring through a sudden film of tears. The joke, the casual, throwaway cruelty of it, was like a physical blow. The LOL at the end felt like a final twist of the knife. They weren't just having a celebration without me, they were making a joke out of my absence. My first instinct was a hot, white flash of anger. I wanted to call, to scream, to demand an explanation. My fingers even typed out a furious, "Where are you?" But then, something else washed over me, something heavier and colder than anger. It was a profound, crushing wave of defeat. I deleted the message. I closed the app. I put my phone down on the table, face down, as if it were radioactive. I didn't react. I didn't text. I just sat there in the silent house, the ghost of their laughter from the picture echoing in my mind. And I waited. Because in that moment, I understood that my anger was pointless. It was a secondary emotion, a shield for the real, unbearable truth. I had become irrelevant to my own family. The exhaustion I'd been feeling for months suddenly made a terrible kind of sense. It wasn't just from work. It was the exhaustion of trying to hold on to something that was already slipping through my fingers. The 2 days that followed were some of the longest of my life. I didn't leave the house. I didn't call them, and they didn't call me. The silence stretched, becoming a vast, empty chasm between us. I moved through the quiet rooms like a ghost, the silence a constant reminder of what I had lost. I'd see Maya's shoes by the door and feel a pang of longing for the days when she'd run to greet me. I'd pass Leo's room, the door ajar, and remember the sound of his laughter as we built elaborate forts in the living room. I'd lie in my empty bed, the scent of Sarah's perfume on the pillow a torturous memory of the intimacy we once shared. The house, once a sanctuary of love and warmth, had become a museum of my failures. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I just existed, adrift in a sea of grief and confusion. How had we gotten here? When did the disconnect start? I sifted through memories, searching for a sign, a clue I had missed. Was it the promotion I'd turned down last year because it would have meant more travel? Was it the arguments we had about money, the constant, low-level stress of keeping up with the lifestyle our friends enjoyed? Or was it simpler, sadder than that? Had we just slowly, imperceptibly, drifted apart, pulled by the currents of everyday life until we were too far away to find our way back to each other? During those 2 days, I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I went into my home office, a room I'd been avoiding, and I opened the closet. Tucked away in the back, behind old suits and boxes of files, was a large, dusty portfolio. I pulled it out and laid it on my desk. I unzipped it, the sound startlingly loud in the quiet room. Inside were my architectural drawings. Not the sterile, corporate blueprints I produced now, but the passionate, creative designs from my younger days. There were sketches of dream homes, innovative public spaces, buildings that were more art than structure. I ran my fingers over the lines, feeling the ghost of the man I used to be. The man who had dreams that were bigger than a corner office and a steady paycheck. The man Sarah had fallen in love with. I had given up that man, piece by piece, in the name of responsibility, of providing for my family. I had traded my passion for practicality, my dreams for a mortgage. And now, it seemed, I had lost the very thing I had sacrificed everything for. The irony was so bitter it almost made me laugh. I had built a beautiful house for my family, but I had forgotten how to build a home. On the second night, as I was staring blankly at the television, my phone, which had been sitting dark and silent on the coffee table, suddenly lit up. The screen glowed with a notification. Then another. And another. In the span of 30 seconds, it buzzed and chimed relentlessly, a frantic, desperate symphony. I picked it up, my heart pounding in my chest. 63 missed calls. 20 from Sarah, 30 from Maya, 13 from Leo. And then, a single text message from Maya. My hands were trembling as I opened it. The words on the screen were stark, terrifying, and made no sense at all. Please come home. We didn't know. My mind raced, trying to decipher the cryptic message. Didn't know what? That I was hurt? That they had broken my heart? It seemed like a ridiculously understated response to their actions. But the sheer volume of calls, the palpable panic in that short text, suggested something more. Something had happened. I grabbed my keys, my mind a chaotic whirlwind of fear and confusion. The drive home, I had been at my parents' house. The only place I could think to go was a blur. I rehearsed 100 different conversations in my head, my anger warring with a terrifying sense of dread. What had happened? Were they okay? The 15-minute drive felt like an eternity. I pulled into our driveway and saw that all the lights in the house were on, blazing against the darkness. I took a deep breath and walked to the front door. It was unlocked. I stepped inside, and the scene that greeted me stopped me in my tracks. The three of them were in the living room, huddled together on the couch. Sarah's face was pale and tear-streaked. Maya was chewing on her thumbnail, her eyes wide with fear. Leo was crying silently, his small body trembling. They looked up as I entered, and a wave of relief washed over their faces, so potent it was almost tangible. "Mark!" Sarah cried, rushing towards me. She threw her arms around me, holding on so tightly I could barely breathe. "Oh, thank God. We were so worried. We didn't know where you were." I stood stiffly in her embrace, the anger and hurt still a cold, hard knot in my chest. "I saw your Instagram story," I said, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. "I figured you were all having a great time." Sarah pulled back, her eyes filled with a fresh wave of tears. "Oh, Mark. No. That's not what it was. We have to tell you something." She led me to the couch, and we all sat down, the air thick with unspoken words. Maya wouldn't look at me. Leo just stared at his shoes. "We didn't go to brunch to celebrate without you," Sarah began, her voice trembling. "We went there to meet someone. A man. His name is David." The name meant nothing to me. I just stared at her, waiting. He's a publisher," she continued, stumbling over the words. "For the last 6 months, I've been writing a book." I was so stunned, I couldn't speak. Sarah, a writer? She'd always been a wonderful storyteller, weaving magical bedtime tales for the kids, but I never knew she had aspirations beyond that. "It's a children's book," she said, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. "It's about a family of bears. The father bear, he's an architect. He works so hard building beautiful dens for all the other animals that he gets too tired to play with his own cubs. So, the mama bear and the cubs decide to build him the most amazing, surprise den ever, to show him how much they love him." Her eyes were locked on mine, pleading with me to understand. The brunch was a meeting with the publisher. He loved the book, Mark. He wants to publish it. He gave me an advance. A big one. She reached for her purse and pulled out a check. I glanced at the number and felt my jaw go slack. It was more than I made in a year. "The surprise for Father's Day, it was this," she said, her voice barely a whisper. We were going to pay off the mortgage. We were going to tell you that you could quit your job, that you could go back to designing, to doing what you love. We wanted to give you your dream back. The pieces of the puzzle started to fall into place, but one crucial piece was still missing. But, the Instagram post, I said, the words feeling like ash in my mouth. The caption, Maya finally looked up, her face a mask of misery. That was me, she said, her voice cracking. Mom let me post the picture. I thought you were at work. You're always at work. I just thought it was a funny, sarcastic caption. Like, Dad's always working, but we love him anyway. I had no idea. I didn't know you thought we'd just left you. I'm so sorry, Dad. The sincerity in her voice, the genuine remorse in her eyes, was undeniable. The anger that had been my constant companion for 2 days finally began to recede, replaced by a dizzying mix of emotions, shock, relief, and a profound, aching love. They hadn't abandoned me. They had been planning the most incredible, thoughtful gift I could ever have imagined. They had seen my exhaustion, my unhappiness, and they had found a way to save me. But why didn't you call me? I asked, my voice hoarse. When I didn't show up for the surprise? We did, Leo piped up, his small voice full of indignation. We called you 1,000,000 times. But your phone was off. I frowned, confused. My phone hadn't been off. And then, a memory surfaced. A few weeks ago, Leo had been playing a game on my phone and had complained about all the boring work people who kept calling me. I had, in a moment of distraction, shown him how to block numbers. My blood ran cold. I pulled out my phone and went to the blocked numbers list. And there they were. Sarah. Maya. Leo. All of them. In my effort to create a boundary with work, I had inadvertently silenced my entire world. The missed calls, the frantic texts, they had never reached me. They thought I had vanished. They had spent the last 2 days in a state of sheer terror, imagining the worst, while I had been just a few miles away, nursing my own imagined wounds. The absurdity, the tragic, ridiculous misunderstanding of it all, was overwhelming. I looked at my family, at their tear-streaked, worried faces, and I started to laugh. It was a strange, broken sound at first, but it grew into a full-throated, cathartic laugh of relief and disbelief. Soon, they were laughing too, a messy, tearful, beautiful sound that filled the silent house with life again. We didn't fix everything in that moment. There were still hurts to heal, apologies to be made on all sides, and a lot of communication to rebuild. But as we sat there, huddled together on the couch, the publisher's check lying forgotten on the table, I knew we were going to be okay. I had spent so long trying to be the perfect provider that I had forgotten how to be a partner, a father, a husband. I had built walls around my struggles, and in doing so, I had locked them out. But they hadn't given up on me. They had seen through the walls, and they had built me a door. That night, for the first time in a long time, we talked. Really talked. I told them about the pressure at work, about my fears and insecurities. Sarah told me about her secret life as a writer, about the joy and fear of pursuing her own dream. We talked until the sun came up, dismantling the fortress of silence I had built around us, brick by painful brick. The next morning, I came downstairs to the smell of pancakes. On the kitchen table was a single, handmade card from Leo. On the front was a crayon drawing of our family, all of us holding hands. Inside, it said, "To the best dad ever. We're so glad you're home." And I was. I was finally, truly home.